I'm or, like the Boolean condition. That's how near my boss over here from Greenfield Tech defined it. This is going to be a technical discussion, so whoever wants to jump in and participate and ask questions, just go ahead. Don't wait. Can, I don't know, raise your hand or whatever. And what I'm gonna present here is not an actual product. It's more of a concept and really early staged open source project that I wish to start, and everyone is welcome aboard. And if you have any questions, like I said, either raise your hand or find me later. I'm staying here for the whole conference. So I'm gonna start. I'm an Asterisk fan since 2009, and since I'm 22 years old, I think this is a major part of my life. I worked, before I started working at Greenfield Tech with Nir and Eric, who's taking picture over here. I did some IT and network security research job at the Israeli Ministry of Defense. And this is the first time I'm at the States, and love the place. I think it's a nice circumstance to visit the States for this conference. A shameless plug, this is a thing in our presentations, at the Greenfield Tech presentations, and it's all related to what we're discussing here. Eric's gonna be talking, Eric over there, is gonna be talking tomorrow morning about telecom fraud and law, which this is something, the security part of this presentation I hope will help prevent future frauds because of, I don't know, wrong implementations of security mechanisms that I'm gonna discuss about. And Ari Halperin, which is not present at the moment here, is gonna talk about adding VoIP to mobile app. That combined, if you combine this with the concept that I'm gonna show about doing ARI calls directly from client side, you can pretty much implement the whole call center application or whatever directly in the mobile app without having to write an additional server side at all. Please raise your hands. Who knows what ARI is as an interface? Okay, that's most of the people. For those who don't know, I think that the best explanation to this is what stated at Asterisk documentation. This is a set of RESTful APIs for building Asterisk-based applications. This is basically a set of functions you can call to do whatever you want, pretty much, in Asterisk. And I find this whole concept very powerful. And I'm going to show you some of the stuff I did with ARI that involves almost no code at all. And I need your help for those who did have the chance to work with ARI. How do you authenticate with ARI? Do you have just a single user defined in ARI and you do everything from your server, or do you create multiple users and work from different apps directly with ARI? Any volunteers? You can answer the question. Yeah.
One user and password that my application server talks to. So all the real authentication happens to the application server, not
Yeah, that's the traditional concept, and that's also what advised by Digium, at least from the previous documentations about ARI, is never work with ARI directly from your client application. It's not built for that. And I agree with this concept, but I think that we can solve this, and I'm going to get to it right away. And you, for instance, did you implement your own authentication mechanism with the user that contact your server, or do you use like OAuth or a third party?
It's implemented, not a third party.
Not a third party, it's self-implementation. Okay, anyone else here use self-implemented authentication mechanism with that? Everyone else uses other methods like OAuth or Google accounts? Sorry? Okay. There are a few reasons why you don't want to implement your own security mechanism, user authentication mechanism. It's, first of all, it has been done before. There is absolutely no reason that you'll need to write a whole user authentication mechanism just to work with ARI. This was the main assumption I had because I develop mobile applications and I don't want to be dependent on server side at all when I want to come and write a new app, especially with the ARI capabilities. So that's something I kept in mind. And besides, it's difficult. You have to cover so much cases, and you have to take things into account about if you work with tokens, then what about the expiry? And it's just I think it's too much to do for a single person, for instance, that wants to create an app and work with Asterisk. So I tried to find a different solution. And this is, by the way, only part of the list from OWASP's website, the guide to authentication. And it covers, like, I think there are 30 cases that you should cover when you write your own authentication mechanism. And that's something I'm always afraid of. I don't want to do this job if someone did it before and he did it probably better than me. So this is the concept I'm suggesting. I'm suggesting that whoever wants to write a new ARI app, we just use any shared core, basically. We can all use the same authentication mechanism. If you want to do adaptations, you can do it to the same core code. You don't need to write your own server just to work with ARI. And this was the original idea behind the project that I call SPARI, which is secured proxy for ARI. And this is what I had a chance to write in a few days. It's really basic Node.js component. All that it has is 2 libraries in it. It's Express.js, which is a basic library to create web applications. And it features as well Passport.js, which is an authentication library that has more than 200 authentication strategies. It can use Facebook accounts, Twitter, Google, JSON Web Tokens, basic authentication, you name it. And if I want to create an Android app, for instance, and I want to use the user's Google account for authentication with my server, I don't have to go and write a server side that supports the Google authentication. I can just use Passport.js's capabilities because someone did it already. And this library is deployed in many major Node.js-based applications. So I felt comfortable enough to just take this library and get it in. And what this proxy provides is first of all, it's a full proxy. Your application is going to communicate only with this proxy. There's no need to authenticate with this server and then send other requests to the ARI. You just work with this proxy. And it also makes your network layer, your network structure more easy because you can place your asterisk wherever you want. You can do it behind the firewall. You don't have to expose any ports outside. All you have to do is to host a web server that runs the proxy. And that server needs to be able to communicate with the asterisk. Afterwards, you're good to go. And today's setup that I'm going to show, the server is going to run on my personal computer. And the asterisk server sits behind the firewall, up in the cloud, and only I have access to it. And it's something that makes it, first of all, more secure, because your asterisk server and the ARI interface are not exposed to the internet. The other thing that I wanted to have inside this solution is a way to control the privileges of the users working with the ARI. So for instance, if I want to create a call center display screen, I don't know, maybe Angular.js screen that just shows how many calls are currently on the system and what's the uptime and nothing else, then this application that wants to work with ARI doesn't need the permissions to create new channels, for instance. There's just it's not reasonable to give this application those permissions. So the next part that I'm going to add, and this whole thing is going to be released as an open source project, is a simple mechanism just to handle and manage those privileges. Like I said, it's strictly Node.js. There's nothing else in it, not PHP, nothing else you have to do. The whole process of running and getting up in the air is just to install Node.js, There is a package.json file already in the system. All you have to do is do npm install, which will automatically load the entire dependencies into the system. And basically, from now on, you can work with the proxy. There is no need for any additional changes. For instance, I did mention you can use PHP ARI to create just a basic stasis app. So you can do stuff that requires the channel to be in a stasis app. But that's not mandatory for creating a channel, for instance. So if you want to implement a callback application, which is what I'm going to show today, all you have to do is just do the npm install, give 2 IP addresses and files that I'm going to show right now, and that's it. You're good to go. You just need to make the channel creation request. That's it. And this is the part where I go to the configuration files. This is the part where you configure the ARI credentials. You obviously have to install asterisk and configure the ari.conf file. But after you do that, you have to create only one user, like my friend here did. And you put those details inside the file. You give the IP and the port, you give the username, you give the password, and that's it. And as for the web server itself, you choose the port. It's going to listen, and you can enable or disable SSL, obviously. You can also create more than one port or server to bind on. You can create multiple nodes. That's always up to you. But once you did these 2 configuration files, all you have to do is to simply go here and run node app.js, and the server is up and running, and you can now make secured requests to your ARI server without actually communicating with the ARI directly. You just go through the proxy. It makes sure you're authenticated users, and then it passes your requests. So I'm going to give an example for a challenge that I had before to deal with, a client that approached to me and asked me to create a callback system for him. This is a small company in Israel. They had 100 users. All those users were sales agents. They traveled around the world. And he had an Avaya PBX at his location. And he contacted me after he got a soft phone solution from a different company. I have no idea what's their name. And he said, the soft phone solution is nice. It's working, but it's not reliable. This all happened at 2012. So things got changed a little bit. You got WebRTC now that does much better work with NAT, etc. But back then, I could understand his need. And what he said, I can't let myself have people out there on the field without the way to communicate back home. And what he wanted to say is, what he asked me to do is to create for him a way to let his users create securely callback requests directly from their local SIM cards that they bought with data. And back then, I said, why not? I was 20 years old. I was in mandatory military service, and I was broke. And this was nice and easy money. So I took the challenge. And I successfully did it. I used asterisk and PHP and MySQL and all the previous stack and AMI to create the callback requests. He also had another nice feature that he wanted the agents to be able to receive calls from Israel. When someone calls their extension at the office, he wanted it to automatically go to the current local number that they purchased at whatever country that is. And I used a custom dial plan and NGI script to give him that capability, but I'm not discussing about this now. I did consider implementing this for the conference, but it was a bit more complicated. So back in the day, like I said, I had to use the old stack, the PHP, MySQL, and AMI, and it took me, I think, a week to get a proper system running and do all the hardening and install the servers, which was fine. And it worked eventually. Everyone was happy. But if I could do this with the current proxy, it would have taken me about 2 hours, which was the long it took to create this demonstration I'm about to show. So what I can do today with the Spire, with the secured proxy, is simply use asterisk and ARI as one component, and then run the proxy and do all the requests directly from the client side. I don't need to write a server to validate the input that the user gives or whatever. I can just do this on the client app and make sure, of course, my dial plan is secured enough to not allow calls to, I don't know, premium destinations, etc. And I'm just going to show it to you up and running because it's very, very simple. First of all, the proxy itself doesn't feature too much code. It has, like I said, it uses passport.js, and all you have to do is you have to define at the proxy what kind of authentication do you want to use. In this case, I chose basic authentication because this is what ARI provides, and this is what I wanted to provide as the first strategy. But you can use, like I said, Google authentication, etc. It's very simple, and it's all documented perfectly online. And afterwards, all I do is I just parse the configuration files, and I start binding. And the actual code is more like you got a request, verify the authentication, and then pass it through. And the Android app I created for this example is even more simple. It almost has, like I said, no code in it. The only code I have here, I have obviously the layout files, where you input your phone number and the destination phone number. And so that's the activity. It has, you can see, there's barely code in here. And the other thing was, how do I make the actual request to the server? And for that, I used our company's simple REST client, but you can use Volley, which is Android open source project's REST client of choice, etc. And all I had to do here is to give the user and password I created on my proxies database, which is also done in one line of code, give the IP, and then create the request. So I have a create channel request here, which goes to it's a post request to the channels controller of ARI. I just used the documentation from Digion's website. No need to do alternation or adapt your requests to match the ARI documentation. I just create the exact same data model I need to do. And afterwards, I fire the request towards the server, and it works. And for this demonstration, I'm going to need 2 volunteers, I think, because, I actually have cell reception here. By the time it loads, I can tell you this is a great thing to work with. It's a Google Chrome plugin. It's called Visor, okay? And it lets you, this is Visor, and it lets you mirror your phone on the screen. I think I can close it and reopen it. It will work smoother. Yeah. Okay. So in this particular setup, like I said before, I have a asterisk server, runs up in the cloud. It runs asterisk 13, but it works also with previous versions of asterisk. I'm connected from my computer to that server directly, and the computer is connected. I didn't want to have NAT problems here at the conference. So the computer is connected with the OpenVPN client, and my cell phone is connected with the OpenVPN client. And this is the demo app. And what I need from you is I need a volunteer with the USA cell phone number.
I'll do it.
You'll do it? OK, wonderful. It would be nice if you could also take it out of silent mode, if it is on silent mode, so people could hear. And then I'd like to have your, yeah.
Does this mean that everybody gets to find out what my number is?
That's, yeah. You can go back now.
Okay, well, no.
James,
Do you want to know what my number is?
James?
Yeah.
This is a truly dangerous demo. He's doing it live.
Yeah.
Okay, it's +1
OK.
443
443.
977
Yes.
6128.
Wonderful. Everyone, this is your chance to take a picture of the screen. Kidding. And sorry, whoops. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to press make the call. And this is the part where I did the request to the proxy. Proxy is running, and the termination takes a couple of seconds. I'm using a slow termination, but this is the call coming into me. And it's supposed to ring it. I hope it will work. Works.
No caller line ID.
Yeah, I hung up, but we can do this again if you want to answer. Yeah. That's about it. I simply created the channel create request, strictly as it says in the documentation. I didn't add anything in the middle. I didn't write a server. I didn't implement my own authentication mechanism. I simply did I ran 3 lines at the terminal. I installed the dependencies, I gave the configuration, and I ran the proxy. And you can see that the proxy handles all those requests. So if I were to do if I did another make call, you'll see that the request got here. And it says with what user I used. I used user called Android, and my ARI server actually runs the user that's called, never mind, it got closed. It's a different username, I'm sure you believe me. And I got the phone again. So that's about it. It works, it's simple. You don't have to do anything else. And I'm really looking for some other people that are interested enough to contribute to this project. It's very, very small, very basic. I'd like to hear also your input. What would you like on this is me calling you again? Yeah, you can answer this time if you want, but
Hello.
This is the real closure. I think that's about it. If you have questions, I'm gonna be hanging around the conference. I'd like to hear your input. I'll be absolutely happy to add features that could help more people to use that instead of writing their own servers. And that's it. Thank you for listening.